Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. I can't do it. Things are going great. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. Indeed, people talking about the sun. I got maximum sun here. We got a major sunrise. That's why I got the blind on behind me. I got heat on the back. It's hot. We're going to talk about where it's hot today, too. We got a lot of hot places. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew, and happy Thursday from sunny Chicagoland. It's a great day to be alive. Beautiful day, says Lance 2002. Isn't it beautiful? It's just a beautiful day. I can't wait. I'm going to go take a walk this afternoon to pick up my children from their homeschooling tutoring situation they do a couple times a week. So looking forward to that. Had a good walk yesterday, but looking forward to today's probably our second spring day that we've had here. So fun, fun, fun. French fry with a double thumbs up. Hell Stew, good morning, pioneers. Successful morning sun launch in Amish country, Pennsylvania. Happy to hear it. Sun launch tech verified, said CB Van. Best one I've ever seen, says Lance. Wow, got a special one out there, CB Van. Good morning, team. Good morning, Matt. Counting down to the count, says Citadel Daniel. I'm here. I hope Nolan is okay. I'm here. I'm fine. Lance 2002. Good morning, everyone. It's Bitcoin panties and orange shirt kind of day. That's what you got to do, everyone. That's what you got to do. So indeed, we got a major sunrise tech folks in the YouTube chat saying the same thing. Good morning, Chicago Burbs, not ya homie, Bill Knox, 200K. Cheers, indeed, Mudcast. Hope you're doing well, my man. All right. Let's acknowledge major sunrise. We're loving the sun. We've got a operational Bitcoin as well. We're sitting here at, let me make sure this is still accurate. Let me make sure my reading is accurate. Wow, 77,700 US trash tokens. I got it right at the magic number 777. Triple sevens today. Triple sevens. Lots of fun. So there you go. We're doing great. Let's have some coffee. Talk about what's new. I got some really special NPC news stories for you today. All right, first, you're not going to believe this, guys. You're not going to believe this. This is a real headline, just perfect from CBS News. Hope you enjoy this one, guys. Here we go. Salmon exposed to cocaine in the water swim longer distances than those that go without cocaine. You know, those non-coked up salmon, poor guys, they're at a major disadvantage, right? According to a study released this week. So if you have a trouble with your salmon run, you got to give them some cocaine. You got to give them some cocaine. The coke is the secret. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the weather, not the coked up salmon. This is an important story. It was Earth Day yesterday, as I reminded you all. And turns out, here we go. It's the hottest country on Earth, America. Happy Earth Day. The hottest country on the planet. That's what the president keeps saying. He reiterated yesterday on Earth Day. Hottest country in the world. Kind of perfect. But with all that heat, it's not so simple here from Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada. Wilting wildflowers and bummed out bees. Climate change threatens U.S. state symbols. Guys, your state symbols are under threat. You thought you just had beautiful pictures on flags. Wrong. They're under threat. People around the world, mistletoe is widely recognized as an invitation for holiday romance. In Oklahoma, mistletoe is a marker of cultural heritage. Designated as Oklahoma's official floral emblem, it is the oldest state symbol in the United States. Though the mistletoe's ability to withstand harsh winters is said to symbolize the grit of Oklahoma's early pioneers, the flower may have met its match in climate change. Oh no, it's more of these stories. Mistletoe, screwed. We got more problems. Trillium in Ohio, screwed. Symbols of a crisis. Rhododendron, oh no. monarch butterfly, all the, we're trying to count the branches and it's not going well. The yellow hibiscus, guys, America screwed. It's too hot. It's just too hot. Just too hot to handle. We got this in Canada, guys. If you're worried about the war in Iran and gas prices, right? Here's another little bit of advice. Factor, guys, if you're buying a new car, the experts here to help you factor fuel costs into the car purchases, guys. You got to think about the fuel costs, okay? When you're buying your car, experts. This is news. Brand new. No one ever thought of this before. We have the experts, though. Thank God. All of you folks in Milwaukee and Wisconsin, are you asking yourself this question today? If you're not, you're stupid. You got to ask yourself this question. Is the frequency of golf ball size hail evidence? Is it evidence? Did you go outside and pick up one of those golf ball size hail, what do they call them? Hail balls or something like that? Hail. I just call it hail. Did you pick up a bit of hail and then say, this is proof? I'm holding proof, but then melt it away? Take a picture next time. Indeed. Types of storms that produce golf ball size or larger hail are becoming more frequent thanks to climate change, guys. What it is, it's proven. Someone picked up the ball in Milwaukee. Know what's going on. And then we get this. Think concern of climate change is passe. Think again. For most people, climate change always comes roaring back as a top issue, guys. It's coming roaring back. 2026 marks Thursday that I've been working as an advocate for environmental progress. Listen to this boomer. They know what they're talking about. We get this. Guys. U.S. pressure puts World Bank's climate plan at risk. The World Bank's work to tackle climate change is under threat as the Trump administration pushes the lender to ditch its green targets and step up effort for fossil fuel infrastructure in the developing world. Oh no, guys, it's putting pressure on the World Bank. And not only that, they're putting pressure on the poor G7. Climate scrubbed from G7 meeting to appease the U.S. France has said they're trying to appease Trump. They're appeasing him. Off of the agenda. Don't do it. Can't do it. We got this bad news for Europe now. Heat, pollution, and diseases. The triple climate threat in Europe, guys. There's Europe. Well, pretty soon indeed, because it's so hot and the people will be indistinguishable from the Serengeti, I think. Research from Lancet Countdown shows 318% increase in extreme heat alerts in Europe since 1990s. Remember, it's the increase in extreme heat alerts. Not quite the same as extreme heat. And of course, there was a few special ones today because of the Southern Poverty Law Center stuff from yesterday. I'll share a few of them. The Southern Poverty Law Center was indicted for paying sources to infiltrate hate groups, a tactic federal agencies have used for decades. But so the Southern Poverty Law Center was a federal agency? It was the police? It was the police? Maybe not. And we got this one from Canada. This is in the wrong order, but nevertheless, you like it. Decline in government funding for universities will hamper research, undermine economic growth. Report says, guys, if we don't invest in universities anymore, we're going to have major trouble. We'll have fewer experts. It's a problem. We get this one from Canada too, guys. Canada is not a supplicant. Will not let U.S. dictate terms of USMCA reviews, says Carney. Canada's not a supplicant, guys. It's totally fine. Canada's fine. Oh, this is great too. 13 federal workers who were laid off during the Doge cuts tell NBC News, you're not going to believe it, guys. They struggled to find work, had to move, or took major pay cuts after their agencies were gutted. Oh my God. Could you imagine? They were working in the public sector and then they had to go to the private sector and they made less money. Oh my God. They were fired for being incompetent at their government jobs and being useless and redundant. And now they're making less money. I would have never, ever guessed. I'm at a complete and total loss. And we get this last one, but we're going to be talking about this in our normal news. This one is a beauty. The rich don't play by the rules, so why should I? From the New York Times. Why petty theft might be the new political protest. Guys, you got to go steal. If you want to be a Democrat, you got to steal. You got to literally steal. You have to go out and do petty theft. It's protest, guys. Show Trump you hate him. Steal some shit. It's awesome. So everyone talking about this Hasan Piker sit down yesterday with the New York Times. Before we talk about it, I just got to remind everyone from Palmer Luckey here. I know everyone is busy talking about the New York Times interviewer smiling and nodding enthusiastically as Hasan Piker says to murder the murder of Brian Thompson is understandable because he was guilty of social murder, but I want to focus on him electrocuting dogs. So let's remember, we're talking about the dog electrocutor here before we get into the rest of our analysis about what's going on with Hasan Piker. So I don't know if you guys saw it, but Hasan Piker did this interview with these two broads, and it was beautiful. So you got these two women sitting listening to him like this, like, what do you got to say, Hasan? Yeah, let's steal some stuff, Hasan. It's great. Of course, I'm not going to fat shame them. That's not what I'm doing. She's not fat, this one at all, not even close to fat. But she is an anti-capitalist New Yorker, and she brags how she stole from Whole Foods on several occasions. So there you go. This New York Times New Yorker writer is a petty thief as well. Here she is. Again, she's not fat. I don't care what people say on the internet. The other one, yes, but I'm not going to say this one is. Jason from All In Podcast, Jason Calcana says, this journalist said she would cheer on anyone stealing art from the Louvre. The New York Times PR video is absolutely deranged and required listening. These three are going back and forth advocating, admitting, and laughing up stealing from companies, and then they get into murdering CEOs. So it's absolutely great. Here's the other one. I don't know why people have to go and point out that she's fat looking. It's really mean. I don't get it. Like, can't we just listen to someone do micro looting? Can we just talk about micro looting and not pay attention to her waist and all that stuff? Can we just do that, folks? Do we have to sit around and talk about the fat women arguing and advocating micro looting? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any of that stuff. So we're not going to fat shame her at all. Indeed, here, that say more feeling deranged people get when Hassan the Hun explains social murder as a justification for the assassination of a CEO. She's like, yeah, let's just kill them. Yeah, those fucking losers. Get those fucking people. Here, Pirate Wires reminding us in a new New York Times interview, Hasan Piker says that many understand Luigi Mangione killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson because Thompson himself was guilty of social murder. Yes. Do some micro looting and then some revenge social murders. So really perfect interview yesterday. The fallout of it all has been really fun, and it reminds us that we are in fact in the middle of a Bolshevik revolution. This is how Bolsheviks sound. We are in a fight, and what I've been saying for a long time is you're going to continue to see the political axis have nothing to do with Democrat and Republican that you grew up with. It is quickly rotating into communist versus Bitcoiner versus sovereign type individuals versus a reorientation of society towards individual liberties. And that's why it's not so much a slippery slope, it's physics. Once the opposites start polarizing this way, you can predict that it's going to make the full turn, and this is what it's going to look like. That's why you've got a typical Democrat here, Palantir CEO Alex Karp, who's been a lifelong Democrat, admitting what happens once the physics of this starts setting in, and once you start seeing this rotation. I'm going to have to start it over to make sure I get the audio for you all. But this is what we've been predicting here for a long time. Red and blue over. We're seeing the shift to communist versus Bitcoiner. And here is Alex Karp describing some of the physics behind this change and why it was inevitable, why I predicted it for a long time, and why it is absolutely inevitable at this point. That's why things are rotating in this direction. Indeed, you can see here where a lot of this is headed. Mike Solana writes, the New York Times politely discussed the assassination of a businessman with Hasan Piker, who made the case in the New York Times for assassination. This is not a small thing. This is an insane, unacceptable thing that every liberal needs to denounce. And here, Stephen L. Miller making the prediction, they are in fact not going to denounce it, and he will be a keynote speaker at the 2028 DNC. The media is institutionalizing him on purpose. That's how you can see that this spin, this twist into communism versus what Bitcoiners are advocating for is the only natural outcome of this whole change. There's going to be no way the Democrats distance themselves from the Mamdanis, from the Hasan Pikers. This is who they are now. Drew Pavlo saying, when you listen to Hasan Piker speak, it becomes very obvious why Lenin and Stalin killed so many people. He appoints himself judge, jury, and executioner. Anybody who ideologically opposes him is guilty of vague crimes like social murder and can therefore be executed. Indeed, this is all the telltale signs of these types of Bolsheviks that are now all around the public square, all around the public conversation. And again, this is what happens when you centralize this kind of power, when you centralize money to this extent, and you centralize institutions, and you get the brain damage that comes from all of this propaganda. Why I predict it is entirely obvious that we're headed towards these new extremes very fast indeed. So you're seeing the entire breakdown of the system. Now there's some good news, or funny news anyway. It's not just the Bolsheviks killing the billionaires. It looks like a lot of the communists in the East Village who voted for Mamdani, 70% voted for Mamdani, all angry now and suing Mamdani because he's planning to relocate the Bellevue homeless shelter into their East Village situation. So you got to love it. Now, coming back to why this is a relevant story for us Bitcoiners, again, we were observers to the culture wars and all of the censorship and everything that went on. And we saw big tech weigh in during the first Trump administration and the Joe Biden administration until it became unbearable. But we were watching all of this at the time, and that's how it became obvious to a lot of us Bitcoiners that we were headed for these extremes. And it's one of the reasons why Silicon Valley ended up breaking for Trump later, along with Bitcoiners. But here you can see why big tech and Silicon Valley and Bitcoiners remain different, and why there is still space between us, and why this story of the CEOs getting assassinated and Hasan Piker's communist bent is going to result in something completely different. Cernovich saying, all I ever wanted was for big tech to stop censoring me and for banks to not debank. The New York Times and millions of leftists want to kill every billionaire. Can't say I'm sad at all. This is what Silicon Valley and Wall Street funded. So again, here you can see Bitcoin, of course, not a part of this. We were our own solution. And now when you see how things are breaking down, why things are turning into the extreme, and why Bitcoin is going to benefit from a lot of this pivot, a lot of this new polarity in American politics, why Bitcoin is going to be one of the big organizing principles upon which, that's why it's not just capitalist versus communist. A lot of these Silicon Valley and Wall Street guys thought of themselves as capitalists, and then they went out and did all kinds of regulatory capture and all kinds of institutional capture, and thought they could sit in the middle of this change as Democrats or Republicans. It didn't turn out that way. Things are going much faster into the extremes. That's why Bitcoin is already camped out on the side of, we don't care about debanking, and censorship doesn't work, and we've built tech that doesn't allow it to happen. So we're already on the other side of this new polarity change, and that's why we're receiving all the people that have to decide which side of this equation they're on. Are they with the Bolsheviks? Are they with the brainwashers who think it's okay to steal or kill? Of course, that's, no Bitcoiner thinks that way. So you can see why Bitcoin was way ahead of Wall Street and why we are in such a good power position coming forward. And also, the literacy that we've all got from the media about these stories, about how they are helping push people to these extremes, the Bitcoin meetup culture, the Bitcoin P2P information network definitely helped us from getting prompt engineered into this fight. We were already staked out on one side of the new battle lines, and that's why we're poised to be able to take advantage of and be positioned as this change continues to go through and continues to progress. So, understanding these ops, understanding what the New York Times is up to, and having the capacity and the aesthetic to see these lies is one of our big strengths and one of the reasons why we continue to survive and thrive as change happens quicker and quicker. So, thinking about this story and then jumping over to the Iran story, again, a discerning eye is important for many reasons, right? It's not just a discerning eye to see that communists are setting up someone like Hasan Piker to be a keynote at the 2028 Democrat convention, why you can see the entire party coalescing around the Bolshevik worldview. We're already seeing it as well in everyone's ability, and especially the fake news's inability to spot fake news. So the fake news, of course, has trouble spotting fake news, not just because they are fake news, but because they do live in a bubble of sorts. And yesterday you saw ABC News. I don't know if any of you caught it. ABC News ran an entire story last night about how the IRGC in Iran is interdicting container ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so I'll show you the video in 1 second. Now, there's a whole bunch of this going on. So there's the Iranians who have a video themselves and the Americans who also put out a video of interdictions. Now, this also, I guess you could say, suggests a little bit about what is going on with this media war, because the audience is American. It is the same people caught up in this communist versus Bitcoin systems argument. But first up, look at the American interdiction video, right? Watch the American interdiction video. Look at the camera angles. Look at what you can tell.
Motor vessel
American
Majestic
one.
X, we intend to conduct the boarding of your vessel.
Helicopters from the ground. Some kind of drone here with a shot, right? See the soldiers go in. This is the Americans interdicting the Iranian ship. Or not Iranian ship, but a different, maybe a rug. Maybe it was, where is it from? It was in the Indian Ocean. And where is it from? In the Pacific Ocean, pardon me. It's in the Pacific, so it's much further. So this is the one, I think I was talking about it a bit yesterday. Here's another video very similar from Mero Nawfal. The new phase of the Iran war has a name: economic fury. The U.S. is now seizing dark fleet tankers carrying Iranian oil, expanding the campaign beyond the Middle East entirely. The latest seizure happened in the Indo-Pacific, exactly. So much further out from the strait, and oil coming back. So again, watch the American video. Now you can see it here, right? That's the one we just looked at. Now look at the Iranian one, which they released. So Iran also came out with an interdiction video, and ABC ran this as if it was true. Now, have a look at the quality of the video, first of all. So this is one of their little speedboats coming up. So they got a camera out there. There's American ships everywhere. There's warthogs and there's American ships. And so, yeah, they boat out there. Sure. sure. And then they got a camera outside watching them, but they've already got now, watch, there'll be a camera inside. Yeah, they got a camera in the boat already. Yeah, they're climbing up the ladder. Sure. These are all legit Iranian soldiers, guys. This is going great. Right, so they climb up. And then, and this is coming from OSINT Technical, don't forget, right? So we don't have any faith in these people. Yeah. This is all, so obviously, guys, this is AI generated. Nothing like this ever happened. There's no video of these guys boating around, taking ships, all these camera angles. This is made like a movie. It's not, look at the American quality of the video, and then look at this veneer and filter. Like, I'm surprised they got the letters correct here on this boat, but none of this happened. This is not real. Yet ABC ran this video last night as if it was news, like this is a real story. And now I get it. People fall for this stuff all the time. I've fallen for fake AI videos. It's really hard. You got to train yourself now to realize that videos just lie, right? When they say a picture tells is a picture, what is it? Says 1,000 words or something. Anyway, all that shit's fake now. None of that matters anymore. The videos, the pictures, none of it's real anymore, and you just can't trust any of it. But you should still have an eye for the aesthetic to be able to navigate these changes. So ABC failing entirely yesterday, that video just completely fake. And the only real way, and this is where Bitcoiners have a major advantage, the only real way to really understand what's going on anymore is not these videos. That's why, I'm somewhat, I don't know, you can say, yeah, picture is worth 1,000 words. Yeah. That's why I'm somewhat, I'm regretful that America hasn't been creating embedded news or really having a strong media on the ground when it comes to this Iran war, because it's all naval and air. So you're not really getting soldiers with embedded journalists like you would have in Vietnam. And so the war is surreal for that reason, right? Because it's all these fake videos, and then even the American video, of course, issued by like a press corps. And they do have those guys. I worked with a guy in early Bitcoin, by the way. He would have worked with Aubrey Strobel at the beginning of her career in Bitcoin. And his job before all of this was as an embedded military videographer and communications expert. That's how he got into the PR game and moved to New York City. He was actually Australian, and he worked as a Australian soldier in Afghanistan. And it gave me a real sense of just how much movie making goes on actually on the ground. Now, you don't have that this time in the Iran war. And that's one of the big reasons why all of these fake videos have so much traction, is because we don't have any legit video to go on. So everyone's trying to make, it's almost like tea leaves at this point, trying to go through the videos. The American one is real, but there still is production value. But that's how the Iranian one is so fake, is because the Iranian one's production value is way beyond the American one, which means, do they have the capacity to make these videos? I say no. I say it's not possible. And then you just look at the veneer and aesthetic of these videos, and you kind of say, well, it's probably not real, probably fake. So that's what we're seeing. Now, the best way, and this is an advantage for Bitcoiners, the best way to understand what's going on in Iran is to look at the markets. Unfortunately, there is no other way. And here we see again that the stock market, of course, not caring at all. Strait of Hormuz still closed. Iran will not talk to American infidels. The stock market saying, who cares? Americans and people betting on this market have a better understanding at this point than all these global experts. Hugh Hendry saying the same thing, a great Bitcoiner here, the acid capitalist. I've hung out with him a few times, lives in the Caribbean. Here he writes, Hugh Henry, part Jesse Livermore, part Jimmy Buffett is dead right. The tape doesn't lie. The US is the casino house with infinite capital, zero time pressure. Iran is the desperate gambler whose entire system ceases the moment the oil stops flowing for pause too long, and you risk your permanent reservoir damage, a wound that never heals. Markets are printing all-time highs and crushing VIX because they already know how this ends. The house doesn't beat the gambler. It simply outlasts them. Hugh Hendry, the market is right. The intelligentsia is coping. And Bitcoiners have been able to understand this for quite a while now. And that's why we're making predictions already for what happens after all of this. And what happens after all of this, let's understand, with this market going hot, you're going back into this world that I've been saying is going to be reality once this is all over, as we head into the United States 250th birthday party this summer. You're going to see Trump with an incredible hand And his hand is going to give him unbelievable leverage in this casino battle. So he not only is the house, he's able to deal himself cards because he knows where this is headed. He's controlling almost all of these levers. And we'll start to see a lot of this golden age branding and marketing really come to the forefront in particular. And this whole golden age peace narrative that I've been saying is going to become what Trump drapes himself in after this or during this summer and into the autumn. It's going to start, I think, with what's going on in China, because again, look at the markets in China and you're going to see Trump is going to win there too. And so all of this Iran stuff is helping him create this sort of peace framework that America is going to have with China going forward. And, just look at the hand he's got. Zeneb Rubia saying it's unfortunate. I don't think people grasp the sheer scale of disastrous conflicts that were erupting the last 4 years or about to erupt all at once, and that the United States has going to have to manage while being pulled away from strengthening its industries. Armenia, Azerbaijan, the Rwanda, Congo, Uganda issue, South Africa consolidating its position with Iran, China, Russia, Venezuela against Guyana, Israel against Iran's proxies, and the risk of wider regional war, Iran nearing nuclear capability, and China leveraging those same networks to entangle the US in the Red Sea, all layered on top of Russia's war in Ukraine with North Korea sending troops. Things aren't perfect, but the world was moving towards a catastrophe. And that is the kind of hand that Trump is going to be able to deal with now. And you're going to see China just simply doesn't have the economic situation to put up much of a fight here. Ken Lau here highlighting what's going on in Chinese airports, saying here Shanghai Pudong Airport is in a slump. It was already a shithole airport, I'll be honest with you. I'm a big airport fan in the world. And Shanghai Airport, their stupid maglev train. I don't know if any of you have ever been on this ridiculous fucking train they have out of this airport that brings you to nowhere. Like, I love trains. I'm a huge train fan. And I was waiting for years to go to the Shanghai maglev from the moment it was built. I was hearing about it. Wow, the first ever major high-speed maglev train. And, I've been on all of the Shinkansen network in Japan. I was on one of the inaugural KTX. That's the TGV, the French version that they built in Korea. Korea wouldn't buy the Japanese Shinkansen version. I rode the TGV very often when I lived in France. I was a regular TGV, train de grande vitesse, if you don't know what the TGV means, for the train of great speed is how you translate it in France. I've taken the Trans-Siberian, not a fast train. I've taken the train across Canada. I take the train regularly in between Washington, D.C. and New York City. I'm a big train guy. I love trains. I took the train across India. I love trains. So when I first went out to Shanghai, I was all pumped for this maglev train that everyone was talking about. And first of all, you get on, and it doesn't go anywhere. It just takes you to like another suburb. So you jump on at the airport and then you ride it and then you get off and you're still nowhere. Like, you're not where you want to be. You're not in the Bund. You're not in downtown Shanghai. You're nowhere. And that couldn't have been more disappointing. It's still another cab ride after, or a subway, or whatever it is you're doing. And I was so ripped off that I bought a return ticket with the maglev because I was going to take it from the train station, from the airport to the city. On the way home, I just said, fuck it. I'm not even going to bother with this stupid train again. I'm taking a taxi straight to the airport because it's out of my way to go to this dumb train station and get on the stupid train again. Fuck it. I said, I'm just going straight, taking a taxi, not bothering. What a big disappointment. That's after I took it once. It's like 10 minutes long too. Not even. It's just like it goes nowhere. It's a complete and total waste. And that was the big thing in this airport, right? And like I said, I like, just the way I like trains, I like this kind of infrastructure. I like airports. I like all this kind of stuff. I find it fun. I like a good airport, right? And so Shanghai was just one of these really disappointing, shitty airports, and I didn't expect that. And now it's completely bust, apparently. And here we see all the stores are gone. Here's a video that was recorded yesterday of what's going on in the airport. Apparently, total Deadsville. Now, to my eye, this is, really telling because I've just been in the Middle Eastern airports in the last few months with all this war stuff, and they're bigger, busier than ever. I did all kinds of fun shopping in the airports. I got all kinds of cool stuff from it. I go deliberately to Doha to use the airport because I just love it. And compare that to what's going on here in leverage Trump has. Here, this fella saying empty all the stores, Mont Blanc. You can go one after the other, just all bankrupt, all gone, all emptied. Normally, Hugo Boss gone, nothing there. Zero, nothing inside. No one buying anything. China's airlines apparently having trouble too. So just place after place, Paul and Shark, all these luxury spots just completely abandoned. And now here, Wall Street Journal today reporting that Beijing wants to use the International Monetary Fund. They want to use the IMF to rescue the Belt and Road. So the Belt and Road, totally underfinanced, and now they have to go and ask the IMF to bail them out of all of their diplomacy and loans they gave around the world. So not going to work. And again, why Trump has the leverage, just look here, US energy dominance. The world is completely changing. This is a complete and total alteration of how incentives and marketplaces work. Here's gas prices around the world. America still enjoying one of the cheapest gas prices around the world. Canada, a little more. China, not even on the list. UAE energy dominance. Yeah, they've got even cheaper in UAE. We love the UAE. Maybe Kazakhstan. But these are the players, right? That's the price of oil in Kazakhstan. So it's happening, and the leverage Trump's going to have with China in a couple of weeks is going to help change this entire conversation around the world. You're going to see a peace deal with China, and you're going to see what amounts to global regime change. Here is Susan Kokinda and the Promethean Action people talking exactly about this, that we're set for this type of regime change now. I will take this down and talk about it. And it's what I was talking about this week. It's the best way to understand it is this contrast, right? Trump has all this energy. He's going to have the peace deal with China, or the trade deal, which is a peace deal with China. All those peace deals he's already made, and Iran should be over by then. And you're going to see, that's why I think that the Mark Carney story and Mark Carney as a contrast for Trump is really a fun way to frame and a helpful way to frame what's going on in the world today. So here's Susan Kokinda talking about this regime change and highlighting the contrast that Carney now creates with Trump and why it's so important as a framing, really to understand that this communist Bolshevik to Bitcoin frame is not going to hold, and that regime change is going to happen in ways that the communists just didn't see coming. Oh, hold on.
And the central banker's central banker.
Let me just bring it back.
Which brings me to Mark Carney, Canada's prime minister and the central banker's central banker. He's the man who went to Davos in January. He declared that the post-war rules-based order was finished because of Donald Trump. And he positioned himself as the leading statesman of globalism 2.0. Well, last week he held up a toy soldier.
When I get into the office, I always look at this statue on my desk. It was given to me by Mike Myers just over a year ago. And this is General Isaac Brock. Brock was a hero who fought and gave his life for our forebears in the War of 1812. Before Canada even existed on paper, it had a shape in Brock's imagination. Faced with the threat of an American invasion, Brock built alliances across our land and inspired what would eventually become Canada.
So there was the Prime Minister of Canada invoking the War of 1812, going back over 200 years to find a British general defending Canada from the United States. So look at what has happened between Carney's Davos speech and today. Since Davos, where the Trump administration put the globalist system on notice, they've taken dramatic steps to shut it down. And the Iran operation is now clearing the board of one of the empire's key economic choke points. and all Carney can do is hold up a toy soldier. Now, as this show is being recorded, Chatham House is brought.
So you're seeing this regime change indeed, and it is, this toy soldier is a great symbol of it. Trump's coming with all the oil, all the peace, and you've got Carney, the central banker's central banker, holding up a toy soldier. Nothing helps me sleep like knowing our unelected King Carney, the floor-crossing backroom deal legend, kisses his tiny War of 1812 soldier statue every single night. That brave little plastic hero is the only thing holding this country together. Sweet dreams. And I found this pretty interesting. Someone was taking out what would be Trump's, if he wanted to play toys, right? If he wanted to play toys, you can understand why this is a regime change. The War of 1812 was the same war that we're in today. It finally was realized with the Federal Reserve. It finally was materialized with the Federal Reserve and the subordination of the United States to the Federal Reserve as the British outpost in America. And that was fought against before. The War of 1812 didn't really end with Canada burning the White House in 1812. It went further. It went all the way to Andrew Jackson, and that would be the antithesis of Brock. And here Trump shows that history is rhyming once again, and the answer would be, of course, Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson was fighting the exact same war that Trump is fighting. Imagine for a moment that Donald Trump, when addressing the nation about a future trade talk with Canada, he produced a miniature figurine of Andrew Jackson and proceeded to talk about how he brutally defeated the British in 1812, later to become POTUS and chased out the bankers. Not only did he annihilate the British in the Battle of New Orleans in 1815, he did so after the Brits broke their own ceasefire. What a scummy move, frankly. Jackson was also involved in an estimated over 100 violent confrontations and duels, largely to defend his wife's honor. He went on to wage the bank war aimed at taking out greedy central bankers and people bent on manipulating the money supply. How do you think this would go over in the Canadian press? So yes, Mark Carney pulling out a statuette of Sir Isaac Brock, a British man who was stationed in Canada as champion for killing Americans when addressing U.S. trade and killed 4 months into the War of 1812, was a provocative move that will only worsen diplomatic talks and USMCA stuff. So imagine Trump is going to hold successful talks with China. He's going to bring in all of these victories into his negotiating deck of cards. And you literally have Mark Carney with a little toy soldier, when the real fight is about energy, and the real fight and regime change is to get away from the central bank architects, to get away from the financial engineers, and to actually start doubling down on the real economy. So these toy soldiers might seem like a silly way of framing it, but it's actually real. Because yesterday, for the same sovereignty argument, Mark Carney turned around and made an announcement about Canada's space sovereignty. So here you see today we introduced the Canadian Space Launch Act. So look, this looks important, right? This legislation will deliver sovereign space launch capabilities to Canada and help create a new $40 billion space launch industry in Canada. We've reached the moon, and now we can launch Canadian rockets from home. Okay. So remember the whole thing I just said about toy soldiers and fake. This is Canada's sovereignty plan for space. Here's the space launch pad. Image reveals Canada's spaceport following Ottawa's push to reduce reliance on the US for launches. This is actually it. The government yesterday gave $200 million to lease this facility. Wouldn't you like to get $200 million from Mark Carney, the central banker, to sit on a pile of gravel in Nova Scotia and this little concrete launch pad? And not only that, it gets even better. Here we have an investigation yesterday from the Halifax Examiner. Everything you need to know about the spaceport in Nova Scotia, and it is good. Let me share it with you. It's hilarious. Really fun stuff. Here's the investigation. Pictures of the spaceport in Nova Scotia have been circulating. A lot of people are making fun of the facility for being, how to put it delicately, a bit basic. Others who don't know what polar orbits are saying that the facility is too far from the equator to be useful. These are very stupid criticisms. That does not mean that there are not many causes for serious concern. The company that operates the spaceport maritime launch facilities is receiving 200 million Canadian trash tokens from the Canadian government to lease the facility over the next 10 years. MLS itself rents the land, so this maritime launch facility itself rents the land from the government. The maritime launch facility rents the land for $13,500 per year and are now leasing it back to the government, who owns the land, for 200 million Canadian trash tokens. A cynical person might suggest that the government is paying 200 million trash tokens for something that they could essentially do for free. MLS itself is staffed partly by Ukrainians who are up to their eyeballs in various corrupt scams. Everything they've been involved in has been a fiasco, and they've been taken to court by NASA. The CEO and CFO are being compensated with about $1 million a year total. 5% of the budget is being spent on 2 people. The MLS does not build or launch rockets itself and has no plans to do so. It is supposedly going to work on an airport model. In 2025, the company lost 47 million trash tokens with revenue of less than 15,000 trash tokens. Where did that money go? It doesn't seem to have actually resulted in anything getting built. As it turns out, the $47 million loss is probably a one-time thing due to MLS acquiring another company, Spaceport Canada. Before this, MLS was burning 6 to 9 million trash tokens per year, apparently mostly on executive compensation, documentation for a Ukrainian rocket that never got built and which had already been abandoned, and interest on investor debt. Okay, so where are the actual rockets coming from? There are 3 Canadian companies supposedly developing orbital launch capability: Nord Space, Reaction Dynamics, and the generic-sounding Canada Rocket Company. Very little appears to be known about the latter. The first 2 look legitimate. They seem to have actually developed rockets at least. However, they are shockingly undercapitalized for launch companies. It looks like we've raised a few tens of millions of dollars between them via private investment and a paltry $8 million trash token government grant. For context, Musk founded SpaceX with about 100 million trash tokens of PayPal money. Sums like that are table stakes, and Canadian launch companies are operating in an order of magnitude less. So Carney's government just threw its cronies a 200 million trash token for an empty concrete pad on land the Canadian government already owns, while scattering spare change towards companies actually building rockets that could use it. This apparently is Canada's Sovereign Launch Capability Initiative, and it looks a whole hell of a lot like just another grift by connected Liberal Party insiders and their ethnic crime partners to siphon off hundreds of millions from the Canadian public without actually producing anything. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm being too cynical. I would love nothing more than for Canada to have an actual space program, but it looks really bad. It sure does look bad. And we all could have predicted this. This was pretty obvious for most people in Canada. They're literally just robbing and looting. If you watch my weekly show on the Breakup Canada, you'll know it is one of the most corrupt, fucked to death, burning piles of shit of any country in the world. And it has been completely taken over by people who are just looting it, as you hear regularly from Dave Bradley. And indeed here, it's all these interesting characters, everyone having a good laugh at the space. This is their actual promo video. This is a real video, right? This is the actual broadcast from the Canadian spaceport. And it's, I think there's many high schools that have a bigger hobby rocket launch pad. When I was a kid, hobby rockets were a normal thing. And I've seen bigger ones in schoolyards. Like it's a basketball court, as far as I can tell. A little bit bigger than a basketball court. Leasing my driveway for launching pads. Serious inquiries only. Okay, exactly. I mean, it's just perfect. Imagine getting 200 million trash tokens for this. Oh my goodness. This is the, I mean, it all looks like a toy. The whole thing looks toyish, which is perfect because, again, you're dealing with these central bankers, you're dealing with financiers and all of the fiction that comes from financial engineers. It's why Susan Kokinda made that contrast. It's why it is actual regime change. I mean, here she is again talking about what this regime change is really about. You heard the Fed Reserve Chair talk about regime change the other day. But what this regime change is really about is about putting energy and the real producers first. It's about putting the Hamiltonian system of economics and governance first over the central bankers.
But Warsh's two words don't just describe what's happening at the Fed. They describe the entire economic offensive, regime change, and it's against the entire free market system itself. On April 20th, Trump invoked the Defense Production Act, and he signed his name to a formal legal finding that markets left to their own devices have made this country economically defenseless. Here's the language. Our nation's current inadequate and intermittent energy supply leaves us vulnerable to hostile foreign actors and poses an imminent and growing threat to the United States' prosperity and national security. Consistent with that declaration, I find that ensuring the domestic capability for development, manufacturing, and deployment of large-scale energy and energy-related infrastructure is essential to United States national defense. Yet, due to financing risks, regulatory delays, and market barriers.
No sound? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Anyway, this is what you need to see. This is the important thing. And this is what I talked about 2 days ago when it came out. This is the executive order that Trump came out making energy production a national security issue, which is what I've been saying is going to happen from the beginning. I've been using the frame of AI and the data center finance argument. When people say, is it a bubble? What's going on with this bubble? I've said to you, this is aerospace in the 1950s. This is a national security issue. There is no amount of money that's going to be a fiat anyway, that's going to be too much for America to pay. They're going to go crazy building this stuff. It's the only way they can win. And that's been understood for a long time. And again, it's the type of leverage Trump is bringing into these negotiations in a world that is now going to be oriented around energy, not central bankers, not finance schemes, around actual production, the Hamiltonian system becoming, I have sound. Okay, good. Yeah, I'll keep playing it then for just a minute.
These cannot be met in full under existing market conditions. Now, this was one of several executive orders that addressed the entire gamut of America's energy production and distribution. No one noticed that, but they should have, because this points to one of the key vulnerabilities of our free trade gutted economy. The president pointed to transformers specifically, the large power transformers that make the whole U.S. economy.
So there you go. It is about actually was not working on the last video, not Promethean. Okay, yeah. Well, the last video was previous video. Yeah, you didn't need to hear it. It was just a launch video. I needed a chance to go open some of the doors. It gets hot in here. Don't ask me why. So again, Trump has this negotiating leverage. It's all about swapping out economic systems. It's all about reorienting the economy on what's actually productive and what actually moves the world and what is actually going to be useful going forward, not just toy soldiers and fake rocket launches. And that's why, China is a real thing, but you can see they're not in control of the system. Here, Elon Musk talking about the plan that China has to back. Now, why isn't this sharing anymore? 1 second. It says it was sharing. Here's Elon Musk talking about saying, interesting to China backs orbital data center startup with 8.4 billion in credit lines. So they couldn't go out and get money on the public markets in China because they can't even get their airports to have any retail going on. So you're seeing an entire change in systems. China will figure it out. I think they'll be fine. But the old world that Mark Carney comes from is just going to be remembered for its failures from now on, because they're going to lose this fight. There's no way the toy soldier playing fake rocket country is going to be able to win any negotiations with the United States when they've got China over a barrel like this, to the point where China is just grasping at straws to keep up, begging the IMF for money, trying all of these little dirty tricks, but none of it's going to work. In the end, America is going to help China, I think, in a lot of ways. And why not? China is got a viable system. They have a lot of stuff they produce. There's no reason why America and China can't trade together. China's just going to have to adjust to America changing, and they're going to have to change the way trade works. But you're going to see all the details of it soon, because Trump is going to get what he wants from China. There's no way he's going into these negotiations in a way that is going to lose. He's been setting up for these negotiations with China for years, it seems, and he's going to come in with all of the cards, just as you're seeing the markets already predict. And ultimately, the winners of this stuff end up writing history, right? We all know that the victors write the history books, and it's why I think here's a great take, and this is where Mark Carney, being the final boss, if you will, the final symbol of what Trump is destroying, why it's going to leave in its wake a mythology. And the mythology will be much like the mythology around Andrew Jackson, which was forgotten mostly in our generation because of the subservience we ended up having and the subordination we had to the central banks. But we're going to rewrite the history of this era, right? Not only are we going to write our new history, we're going to rewrite everything from World War II. We're going to link up, I think, the storylines from the American Revolutionary War through the War of 1812, through the Civil War. We're going to understand the history of America much more in terms of trade, much more in terms of sovereignty, much more in terms of banking than ever before, which is, again, why the political fight now is between communist central bank planners and the free market, or not even exactly the free market, the sovereign state market that Trump is talking about here, the sovereign state market that doesn't have any of these crazy central bank incentives and any of these crazy market distorting incentives that central banks end up creating. And so the mythology, the storytelling aspect is going to become a huge deal. And I think Saifedean is totally correct in this. And this is why the entire history is about to be reinterpreted. Here's an actual insane quote from Keynes saying, "I'm leaving for Egypt. I shall get as far as Luxor and have just heard that bed and boy is prepared. I'm traveling looks and feel very magnificent." I mean, this could probably have come from Mark Carney. And Saifedean saying, in 50 years' time, all of Keynes' stupid economic ideas will be dead and forgotten, and he'll be just remembered as a child rapist. Again, when I say Trump has all the cards, and you can see what kind of narrative supply chain he has after all the leverage he uses in China to get that peace deal ends up becoming enacted, we get all these power plants, we start celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States, and we start embracing the golden age and the new systems that he's building, the old ones are going to get reinterpreted. And again, why I keep explaining that anything you think today about the fake MAGA Civil War, right? We're seeing now more and more the Civil War. Nick Fuentes, again, I don't have any proof with the Southern Poverty Law story connecting him to it yet, but I think the proof will probably come. I'll wait for it, but I think you're going to see that none of it was real. It was all fake. Again, Bitcoin helped us decide that, helped us decipher this. The minute you hear stupid shit about Bitcoin from Professor Fuegwo guy about how, well, the servers, where are they? And then you hear him, and then you hear other people like Tucker, and you hear these folks talk about Bitcoin, and you say, and Nick Fuentes tipped his hand last year about this. I like fiat, he said. Okay, you like fiat. All right. Do you really? Or what else is going on? And he was given a lot of Bitcoin, don't forget. But he was also given a lot of fake money, and he chose the fake money. So I think anyway. So what's going to happen from now is Trump has this narrative supply chain, and this is exactly what I said, why I predicted we'd be pivoting back to Epstein files stuff, because indeed Epstein files are going to be layered onto all of this. Mark Carney has a relationship with Epstein, of course. We're going to find out more about the City of London. We're going to find more about what these types of vampires have been doing for all these years. And again, you're going to hear a reinterpretation of the US Revolutionary War, the Civil War. All of our wars are going to get reinterpreted. Everything, when these things happen, gets reinterpreted. And you end up getting a new narrative and a new mythology that goes along with all this. The World War II consensus brought mythology with it. And that's what was done after World War II. All of history was reinterpreted. That's why history is so fake. It always gets reinterpreted. And we're going to create, whether it's real or not, doesn't really matter. We're going to reinterpret our experience in the Revolutionary War, and we're going to tie it to all of these banking entities and all of these financial engineers. And that's going to be the number one story. And that's why, again, going back to communism versus Bitcoin, it's the only frame that's going to hold as we go through this change. And we'll break after and we'll have new fights later, but this is the last stand of communism, I believe. And again, when you realize what Trump holds, this amount of control over the narrative supply chain, that every one of these levers from now until the autumn are just buttons he can push. You're going to see why he is, I think, going to bury the communists once and for all. And here you've got Mark Andreessen predicting something pretty similar. Here he is on this new podcast called Monitor the Situation. And here he is predicting exactly that anything you see today in politics isn't necessarily going to hold up. You've got to start seeing the supply chain of narratives in order to understand what's going on. And here, Mark Andreessen is describing what Monitor the Situation.
Viral social media meme explosion. It basically is.
Or maybe I should start it over, because we never know. We never know with the audio business.
This huge spike up, and then it's like this half-life decay, and it lasts about 2.5 days. Right. And so each social media basically experience is like a 2.5 day basically panic cycle. And then what happens is the old one isn't necessarily ever like resolved or reconciled, but what happens is a new one appears, a new current thing appears, right, and just takes over takes over the outrage, right, and all the emotional energy that applied to the old one applies to the new one. Everybody forgets the old one even happened. Like a week later, you can't even remember. Like, what was the social media like craze of like 7 days ago? I mean, it might as well have been like 1,000 years ago, like lost to the mists of time. Nobody knows. Like 7 days ago, whatever it was the most important thing that's ever happened. And 7 days later, it's like it never, not even a peep, like nothing. It's like completely gone, right? And so you're just going to have this like basically repeated sort of, emotional shotgun blasts over and over every 2.5 days, essentially forever. By the way, this is why one of my theories is like, it's now impossible to predict the outcome of politics. So like everybody thinks they know what's going to happen in the midterm elections in November. And I'm like, okay, it's now whatever. It's April 20th. It's April 20th. The election is whatever, November 6th or whatever. All right. How many 2.5 day cycles are there between April 20th and November 6th? And the math majors, be able to calculate that in their head, but it's, 100 or something, right? Or 120 or something like that. Like whatever is the thing that we think is the thing that's going to tilt the election today is going to be 100 social media meme cycles old. Like nobody's going to remember anything that's happening right now. The election is going to turn basically on like whatever's happening in the economy, and then it's going to be whatever is like the viral meme panic that's happening like that day. Right. And so you could say like, is this good or bad? I don't know. Is this better or worse than television? I don't know. By the way, is this better or worse than the days of radio or the days of, I don't know, the printed, the revolution that followed, the arrival of the printing press? Is this better or worse than the days in which, we were all reciting epic poetry around the campfire as our form of media? I don't know. You could have like a big value discussion about, which is better or worse. I have an argument I will make that this, notwithstanding all the craziness, this is better. But like this is the nature of the world we live in. And let's put it this way, we're now on autopilot. Like the shape of the media determines the behavior basically from here on out. And until there's something that fundamentally displaces social media, like this is the world we live in.
Well, I'll suggest one other way that you can, I don't know about predict the elections. I think he's right about a lot of this. However, you can create supply chains for narrative. And I told you that Trump was creating a supply chain with the audits, and that the audits will do a lot to predict what's happening, and that the audits themselves, all the Nick Shirley stuff, was a guarantee that you're going to know what storylines are coming forward. It's just going to be constant drip, that it's the number one story in aggregate over the time from now until the midterms. Nick Shirley showed people, he got tons of attention, tons of clicks. And once you model this behavior, once you show people how to do it, you're going to continue to just have the storyline stretch itself out. And that's what Trump is going to be able to take advantage of. He's got all of these audits. He's got Besant auditing. He's got the California situation. Even look at what's going on with Ilhan Omar. This is just pure wrestling. So what you do is, in wrestling, you understand how to build up the kayfabe, how to build up the narrative, how to create all kinds of tension and drama for WrestleMania. You know, everybody this year was complaining that WrestleMania didn't have enough drama and enough of a buildup and enough tension. Partly it's because politics is stealing it all now. Politics is completely stealing wrestling's capacity to do these fake fights and all these stories. And the Nick Shirley stuff and the audit stuff has a big role to play in that entire story. And here you can see in just another one of these things. These things are going to be like catnip from now until the midterms. And you have to see it as a supply chain. You have to see it as the type of hype that's created for a major event. We know the timing. It's whenever the midterms in November are. And then you run these stories and you try and get to these dramatic crescendos. You try to get Ilhan Omar to crash out. You try to get, like she did yesterday, I think you're stupid. And then she does her little face, you're stupid. But it's not going well. She's too stupid herself with her Leering Center scams and her address changes. And it's just all so Somali and low IQ. And that's why you're going to continue to have all of these people catching her. Here's another one that learned from Nick Shirley. Again, it's just going to be this and this and this and this and nonstop.
A very high net worth of $5 million. But this right here is massive.
I walked by every single office in this building, and everyone has their logos proudly displayed on the wall. I asked around for Rose Lake Capital, and people were not familiar with it. I looked at every logo, and Rose Lake Capital did not have an office here. That means they are using it exclusively for mailing or just for meeting spaces. Despite being such a large company, you would think that they would have teams and entire infrastructures or even an entire suite on Wall Street.
So Angela Rose is back at it again. I'm talking about a company claiming to manage $60 billion operating out of a WeWork mailbox. No office, no employees, no SEC filings, nothing. So today we're going to break down Angela's investigation, and I'm going to show you why this is way bigger than just a shady business. This is a pattern of complete corruption, starting with Congresswoman Omar. Let's get into it.
This company is called Rose Lake Capital, and it is co-owned by Ilhan Omar's husband.
Now you got that. You got this one here as well. Everyone noticing the sham winery was dissolved 9 days after her updated disclosures. No, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. I did nothing. I did nothing. So these audits are just going to continue, and they're coming from every direction. That's what makes this world wrestling entertainment type supply chain narrative supply chain system so effective, is that it's coming from the independent people. It's coming from the Secretary of the Treasury, who's the very person involved in this regime change that we're all experiencing, this huge pivot to communism versus Bitcoin, Bolsheviks versus Bitcoin. So this stuff really hurts and really hits, and it actually affects things. Here's RFK getting involved. It's just nonstop, right? And RFK yesterday managed to have another viral moment with AOC at the end of this. Just perfect, right? You want to catch AOC and all this stuff. Let me see if I can find that picture for y'all, because it was a good one. Kennedy, RFK, AOC, all these people with their 3-letter initials. Excellent stuff. Let me see if the pic is there. There. Oh, I've only got YouTube ones of them kissing after. Yeah, there it is. Got it. So here's the RFK and AOC viral video that people were viral still that people are talking about. So Here, let me know if the audio comes through. You're going to hear RFK doing more of the audit stuff. Again, this is all narrative supply chain. And while you're right, you can't really guess what weird things are going to happen, right? All kinds of bombshells could happen, of course. But this consistent narrative supply chain approach, where you know this audit story is going to stay number 2, number 3 every day. Every day you're going to hear this stuff.
So now you've got all of these problems, and I'll give you one example. Hospices in Los Angeles. We've shut down 500 of them. We have not gotten one call from a congressperson or one call from a patient. Why? Because those hospices did not exist. Right. They were signing up patients. They were getting patient IDs, signing them up, and charging us $6,000 a month for that patient. How did we detect them all? Because the patients never died. So now you've got all of these problems, and I'll give you.
So more of these audits, of course, all kinds of them in California. Listen to this lady. She's got a great example here. Hopefully the audio keeps coming through. We're getting lucky with the audio here. But here's just a hilarious one. Hilarious. And it's, again, this will be entertaining every day for months, because this is people stealing from you. That's way more persuasive. When you hear Hasan Piker say a little stealing is okay, and then you watch them steal from you, it doesn't work that way, right? People get more angry about that. They're not stealing from Whole Foods. When people feel like their own money is getting stolen, it becomes a big deal.
You'd be amazed at how many hospices the door you can walk up to in California, and there is nobody there. There is 5 months worth of mail that you can see stacked up from CMS, and nobody's there. That passed a survey. How did that happen? How do you put a hospice in a burrito stand in California? How do you put a hospice in a tire store in California? That all had to be vetted through licensure and through certification and accreditation. You'd be amazed at how many hospices
So again, it's going to be constant, just absolutely constant. And it gets even better. The audit stuff is just breaking out of the mold. I told you for a long time, California, when it came after Minnesota for this stuff. And again, it's just funny. It's funny right here now. From Christopher Rupo yesterday, we found out scoop. Gavin Newsom funded a left-wing NGO that specializes in bringing in undocumented migrants living with AIDS. The group's executive director claims that his queer, trans, and non-binary clients, 1 in 5 of whom is infected, almost all gain asylum in the United States. They were actually going and finding AIDS people to get them into the United States. Here, how Gavin Newsom subsidized the migrant invasion exclusive. Gavin Newsom was granted nearly $1 billion to left-wing NGOs that have helped illegal aliens cross the border, organized anti-ICE protests, and brought in undocumented migrants living with HIV. The invasion was totally subsidized. You get Joe Lonsdale here having a good laugh about this. Quite literally, Newsom had to keep your taxes high to subsidize the importation of trans migrants with AIDS. The wacky stereotype is true. You're not going to beat this. This is too good. It's too good. This is narrative supply chain at its best. And people are realizing how these scams work now more than ever. Of course, the story yesterday with the Southern Poverty Law Center is in that same vein. This is more auditing that's bringing all these results. Auditing, of course, as Bitcoiners understand, is fundamental. That's why auditing is going to become one of the major polarizing narratives that help bring us to this Bitcoin versus Bolshevik type of frame for American politics, getting rid of the old left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, why it's coalescing into something different, individual sovereignty, not getting robbed, not getting taxed, voluntarism over the Keynesian communist system, which just got robbed. Of course, it is with the Southern Poverty Law Center. It was an audit of the money, right? It's another audit story. We saw where the money went. We saw that it was going to these scumbags. And now it's exposing even the news, right? You've even got CBS News here saying yesterday, the Department of Justice has changed the Southern Poverty Poverty Law Center, charged the Southern Poverty Law Center with fraud, misleading donors, and lying to financial institutions, allegedly by paying members of violent extreme groups millions of dollars. Now, it's not the members they paid. It was the leaders, as Hans Monkey points out here. They were paying the leaders of these extremist groups. It is by definition impossible to call that an informant arrangement. It is like paying an arsonist to report on fires his own operation is setting instead of paying him to not light fires in the first place. And indeed, this story will continue to pay dividends because worse than robbing, right? It separated American families, the Charlottesville hoax and all of that kind of stuff. They're trying to cover it all with this narrative. Okay, the DOJ uses paid informants all the time. Why is it okay for them but not the SPLC? Right? It plays a vital role in fighting hatred. The narrative they are now running with is that the SPLC was apparently a law enforcement organization. Of course, none of this is going to work. Daniel Goldman is not going to be able to keep up on the fight here. This is going to fail. Just weak sauce, weak kayfabe. Here is another media organization, CNN, trying to say the same thing. Right now, it's that the government and the DOJ is appeasing Trump. But of course, before, when the DOJ conducted an investigation, that was also to appease Trump. All right. So this stuff is just not persuasive compared to the amount of suffering Americans had as a result. And this goes beyond this 2-day cycle. This is systemic now, and you're going to see more of this stuff.
What these charges allege is that over the course of years, the SPLC paid, according to the Justice Department, as much as $3 million, paying informants to infiltrate some of these groups, including the KKK, including far-right groups. For instance, the group that did the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. What the Justice Department says is that constitutes bank fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and look, I'm not sure how well this case holds up, but what it tells you a lot about is really the bigger story of the Justice Department. Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, is under pressure to bring some of the cases to appease the president and his allies. And so you're seeing a lot of activity on things like this. But these charges allege...
Anyway, it's all too weak. None of it will hold against what Trump is bringing because... look, this, you can see that the results of this kind of mischievous behavior was to get people killed, right? This divided families, this got people killed. Here you can see Andrew Kolvitz say this is what happened with Charlie Kirk when the Southern Poverty Law Center put the hit on him, is what he says here, by targeting him for hatred and all of these things.
Hate. But guess what? There is a supply and demand issue when it comes to hate. So they had to gin up more. They had to manufacture more hate. And when they run out of actual racist and KKK and Aryan Nation groups, guess what? They turn to Turning Point USA. And Jesse, I hope your audience realizes this and really internalizes this. They put Turning Point USA on the hate map at the SPLC, the quote-unquote hate map, in May of 2025. Less than 4 months later, Charlie would be killed by an assassin who said, quote, "Some hate can't be negotiated out." They put a hit on Charlie. They put us on a target list. And I will never forget, Jesse, that when this happened, I remember talking with Charlie, and he said, in typical Charlie fashion, he wasn't worried about himself. He was worried about our students. This wasn't just about Charlie, although this obviously tragically impacted all of us and Charlie directly. But he was worried about our students all over across the country. And honestly, this is blood money. You mentioned that their donations skyrocketed, almost tripled in 1 year after Charlottesville, which they helped fund. This is blood money, Jesse. And if MGM and JP Morgan and Tim Apple and the Clooneys have any self-respect, they would demand their money back. They cornered the market on money.
And, again, these were the people they put on their hate list. Ben Carson and Charlie Kirk. I mean, people praying and then you got this guy, right? It hits different now, doesn't it? They knowingly divided our nation. Here's Joe Biden ranting and raving about white supremacy and how fake it all is. And again, this has torn entire families apart. I've told you a few times about what it was like in my office in New York after Charlottesville. We weren't having fun anymore about any of this stuff. And it actually created, divisions forever after that. Again, with these audits, we're understanding more and more about what's actually going on in the world. And indeed, what we saw yesterday, JP Morgan, George Clooney, George Soros, Southern Poverty Law Center, their backers. This is the war. This is now focusing the war, creating very clear distinctions in the belligerents in America. This is the civil war we're engaged in, and we're understanding how narratives work. We're getting a lot better with narrative supply chains. This audit story is going to continue to pay dividends, and it broke other narratives that are out there. I mean, this one I've been talking about for a while, but it's the hip hop scam, right? Now, I'm someone who never really got into hip hop because I was always like, I don't like negative stuff. I don't like violent stuff. I liked some hip hop that was positive. Like I was a big fan of Diggable Planets in the 1990s and A Tribe Called Quest, but I didn't really get that involved in any of it because I didn't want to hear about the swearing and the violence and the I just killed the guy. Da, da, da. I didn't like it, right? So I always found it ugly and stupid, and indeed, now we're finding out, Attorney General, another one of these audits, you're going to see more and more of it. Attorney General Ken Paxton just announced an investigation into major music streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Music, over payola schemes. This comes after I announced on September 9th, 2025, that the federal government was allegedly preparing to launch RICO charges on prominent radio stations in money laundering, illegal racketeering, fraud, and payola, among many other illegal activities as a result of the February 2025 FCC iHeartMedia payola probe against radio. Some sources also allege that the rapper Drake's recent lawsuit with Universal Music Group was assisted in this happening. It was reported on May 3rd, 2025, that iHeartRadio settled with Drake over the Not Like Us payola probe. And indeed, here we see hip hop, probably all of it a scam and probably part of the whole edifice, the architecture of deceit. Because again, just think about the supply chain of stories coming out, the narrative that's coming out, because all of these threads now, all of these audit threads, the SPLC, all of it is going to come together, of course, and will coalesce around the biggest one of them is Russia, and Arctic frost and all of these stories. And indeed here, that's why you're seeing Senator Eric Schmidt saying Arctic frost makes Watergate look like third-rate burglary. It was a coordinated effort to get President Trump off the ballot, throw him in jail, and wrap up all of his movement. We must treat it with the weight it demands and hold the weaponizers to account. And indeed, I think
this was at the highest level, 1,000 times worse than Watergate, Steve. I mean, this makes Watergate look like a third-rate burglary, which was. This is at the highest levels of government, a coordinated effort with different prosecutors in different jurisdictions, with Jack Smith, a known sort of henchman in all this, was to get President Trump, get him off the ballot, throw him in jail for the rest of his life, and intimidate the rest of our movement, so that this populist movement that we've seen that was brought to bear 10 years ago is dead. And what they ended up doing, because the American people sat in that jury box themselves, Steve, they rendered their own verdict, and it was acquittal and the bringing back in the best political comeback President Trump. So we cannot let this lie. I don't think we can let this go, because we have to make sure that the people who weaponize government are held accountable, and that means prosecutions.
And I think it's going to happen. I mean, here's another video from John Solomon with Glenn Beck yesterday talking about the Southern Poverty Law Center, and again about how you're going to see more prosecutions. That's why I think that the prosecution stories are going to help predict what's going to happen over the next few months, because it's just like the audit stories. This has just incredible kayfabe. People want to hear about this. People have such an interest and want to see people drop from space on into space race, right? And they want to see them hit that little pad in Nova Scotia.
I mean, at least this one was announced by the DOJ. I mean, you know, it looks like we're going to prosecute here. More investigations on nonprofits coming?
Yeah, I think we're about to enter into, we have MAGA, we have MAHA, we have all these great acronyms. I think we're about to enter into a period of MAAA, Make America Accountable Again. I think with Pam Bondi moved aside, the speed at which the Justice Department will move on things that have been working in the system for months is picking up. And so there'll be more nonprofits that were doing things that probably are not allowed under the tax code. If you incorporate yourself to say, we want a tax exemption because we're going to do public good, and you obstruct law enforcement proceedings on the streets of Minnesota or somewhere else, you're probably in danger of having committed fraud. So I would look and see, I'm watching, I think there'll be more indictments in the nonprofit realm. Then we're looking at those who may have given false testimony or obstructed Congress. We know John Brennan was referred for that. James Comey was targeted for that. I think those are on the table right now. Then those who may have gone and gotten phone records and pierced the privacy of individuals, they're next in line. So this line keeps moving. And then I think in the summer and fall, we're going to talk a lot more about a case called Operation Round River. It may be the most troubling of the four.
Oh my gosh.
Round River. Just remember that name. What we believe it is. Yeah. So it falls between Crossfire Hurricane and then Plasmic Echo and Arctic Frost. Plasmic Echo and Arctic Frost are the things that evolve into Jack Smith's investigations. The classified documents is Plasmic Echo. Arctic Frost is the idea. Years later, we're going to go back and charge President Trump with a conspiracy because he and his people wanted to have alternate electors. Now, it's important in that Arctic Frost, which there was a great hearing on yesterday, 2 times in history before this, presidential candidates did submit alternate electors to Congress. 1960, John Kennedy, 1876, Sam Tilden. Neither time were those considered criminal acts, but in Donald Trump's world, he's considered a criminal for doing the 3rd time. That's what Arctic Frost is. But between that, when Russia collusion and Crossfire Hurricane was ending, the FBI opened up a new investigation called Round River, and its goal was to neutralize anyone who would dare suggest that there was a corrupt relationship between Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the Ukrainian government or the Ukrainian company Burisma, and to treat people who talked about it with certain speech parameters as national security threats. And I'm working hard to get those files declassified. And I think that's going to be the most troubling, because I believe if what we're being told is true, and I want to check it until we get it there may have been speech parameters as the reason you were targeted. If you said something, you might have been assessed a security threat as a security threat by the FBI. That would be very troubling. I've seen some evidence in court filings in the last few days that entire law firms had their client records taken secretly under this investigation, or spin-offs from it. You're supposed to have some privacy when you have a relationship with you and your lawyer. So we'll see where that leads. But all the people I've talked to in government think that Round River may be the most jaw-dropping of the 4 codename investigations that targeted Donald Trump and his followers.
So it's going to be entertaining, that's for sure. And we're seeing, of course, signs that this is going to happen. Apparently, the Devin Nunes quitting Trump or Truth Social or Trump Media, I guess, and joining back on the investigations has some kind of implications. I didn't really know about all of that until everyone commenting on it today. But here, Kash Patel running the FBI and Devin Nunes working on oversight of the intelligence community. This is a dream come true to anyone that has been paying attention to the Russia witch hunt during President Trump's first term, and a nightmare to his enemies. Lots of people picking up on it. Svetlana Lakova saying here, President Trump getting Devin Nunes to come back is a big deal after 1.5 years of no successful Russiagate prosecutions by the DOJ. Perhaps he'll be able to push through accountability, justice, and transparency. This is the last chance. Nunes in 2025 says it's a conspiracy. It goes back 10 years. Anyone who could be caught up in this, what do we need to know at the highest level now? We've seen recently that the prosecution of Comey that's occurring in Virginia, that new documents arose, that now we have a clear evidence, direct evidence that Comey knew that this was a cover-up of the Clinton email scandal. So if you go back to 2016, the Clinton campaign, the DNC, they're all worried about the emails coming out because they know if the emails come out that Trump is going to easily cruise to election in 2016. What happened at the time is Comey wanted to keep his job. We know now that through information that's been disclosed. But instead of actually taking the information in 2016 and saying, wait a second, we have the Clinton campaign and the DNC involved in a likely criminal activity hoax to dirty up the other campaign, they actually adopted the campaign and they used the weapon. So you're going to see more and more and more of this stuff. Devin Nunes coming back, probably going to be a big story here. Here's a video from the a documentary made on it where you see Devin Nunes' role and why it's important that he's leaving Trump media. So I'll play this one too. I'm looking forward to seeing Cernovich in Las Vegas.
Make a whole movie on the Russiagate hoax. It's all documented.
There was an illusion being created using the most awesome tools and the greatest tricks that the American intelligence community had learned to use against our enemies. Now it was being deployed against the American people and our president.
This is the biggest political scandal in modern history, which makes Watergate look like a tiff.
A political dirty trick is being carried out by our intelligence community.
Honestly, none of us really know, sort of holistically, what to think about this dossier.
They went into Congress. They said, there's nothing here. Doesn't matter. We'll keep going with FISA, we'll keep going with the investigation, and more importantly, we will go on TV day in and day out and lie to the American people to their face, and nothing's gonna happen to us.
The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
We had not one person claim that they had or had seen evidence of Trump colluding with the Russians.
Devin Nunes was the hero in the forest. He was alone, he was mocked, he was attacked.
Devin Nunes was subject to such scorn for saying the conclusions that we brought forth in that report, which all proved to be true.
Russiagate was a false story.
To target their political opposition, to carry out their insurance policies.
I believe this is a conspiracy.
These guys have perpetrated the greatest crime against the American people ever seen. It was a coup d'etat.
This is how sick and twisted these people are.
I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition.
We have a peaceful transition of power process. That's not what happened. There were more meetings, there were more leaks, there were more attacks.
The thing that they were investigating the Trump campaign for is what they themselves were doing. Not just the Democratic Party and their operatives, but also the FBI.
If I were writing about the time frame that we lived in, I would say it wasn't supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to know.
The entire time this was going on, they thought this was going to be what sunk the Donald Trump presidency.
So pretty fun stuff indeed. And I think that's why we're going to get a lot of answers, because it's just too entertaining. People want the answers. They want the movie to play out. And indeed, why I think you can tell that I believe that we were headed into this season of accountability after the foreign stuff got solved, after the money to US aid and got clipped. So now we've taken out the rug pull that the British could have performed using Iran. We've isolated the Canadian Prime Minister, and we're, I think, going to do these audits nonstop. And it's going to bring every American up to the level that Bitcoiners are at when it comes to don't trust, verify. And all of that is going to get applied to election integrity as well. And did you know yesterday that the Virginia story got more interesting? So apparently the whole Virginia story. Now, you wondered why. Many people wondered why Trump never talked about it, what was going on with it. It turns out the by-election or the election that happened on gerrymandering on Tuesday, won by Spanberger by not much, ended up perhaps being a type of sting because it's already been made moot by the court. A judge from Tazewell County invalidated Virginia's gerrymander. The red spot is Tazewell County, right in the heart of the reddest part of Virginia. This is going to the Virginia Supreme Court, and we will see what they do. But indeed, it looks like Jonathan Turley also reporting we are having quite the night in the courts. A Virginia judge just blocked the state from certifying the results of Tuesday's congressional map referendum as unlawful. Indeed, here, Judge Jack Hurley ruled the Democrats did not follow the correct procedure for a constitutional amendment. And indeed, the referendum language is required to be neutral, first of all. It was not. Here was the actual question they all asked. They said, should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after 2030 census? And it failed. And Denver Fail wonders here if it was a trap. He says, Virginia was a trap and the Democrats fell right into it. Dems rushed the April 21st special election to exploit the narrow pre-EO window before Trump's March 31st citizenship verification USPS tracking order fully hardened the mail system. The small data science team with pre-existing voter rolls plus Eric padding plus AI generated and externally inserted subtle synthetic ghost ballots into the USPS flow, targeting high mail Northern Virginia counties like Fairfax. The late blue shift delivered the narrow yes 51.45 to so about 89,000 vote margin, 89,000 vote margin just over the recount bar, including the viral exact 35K Fairfax absentee batch. Trump's team, data scientists who already modeled the exact cheating vectors from the rolls, had people monitoring Fairfax USPS in real time. They let the fake ballots get counted, preserving the chain of custody and the official tally. Once certified, the trap springs. Subpoena the physical ballots and USPS records via FISA court on national security grounds, foreign interference, election integrity as a critical infrastructure threat. The trackable envelopes plus executive order mandated list create the forensic hook. More auditing, guys. This proves systemic ghost ballot injection at scale, not isolated fraud, but a repeatable AI-enabled operation blending into the blue shift pattern. With ironclad proof in hand, it forces passage of the SAVE Act, proof of citizenship for registration/ballots through Congress, hardens the entire system nationwide, and delivers a historic backfire. Dems rushed map grab becomes the catalyst that exposes and kills the playbook permanently. Trump's loud April 20th framing plus post results quiet was operational security while the monitoring and legal machinery ran. The Virginia Supreme Court process challenge April 27th arguments is the visible lever. The USPS FISA subpoena is the silent kill shot. It's time to take our state back, Colorado. So Colorado next after this Virginia story. There's old Jenna Griswold, probably in trouble indeed. And you're going to see indeed here even the attempt to gerrymander the elections and manipulate them, going to fall into numerous obstacles. Here's Mark Elias and the trouble he's currently courting, which is also why I think that no one's going to take elections seriously, because you're going to have a lot of broken brains after this, right? So it's not like we're headed to a world where election mandates end the argument. So here it is critical to understand the coordinated long-term strategy now in motion. Mark Elias is working full-time to convince Democrat voters that Donald Trump is actively rigging the midterms. At the same time, Bowie, a former law clerk for Justice Sonia Sotomayor, has spent the last 6 years relentlessly pushing to strip the Supreme Court of its power and delegitimize the institution entirely. Again, another failed plan. Don't think it's going to work. And why I do believe you're going to see more of these stories. Again, Trump coming in with just such a powerful negotiating hand. Even go back to what he did in Iran yesterday. I don't know if you guys caught this, but he actually got an execution stayed on a couple of women who were going to get executed. He asked the mullahs to stop it. He said, here, very good news. I have been informed that the 8 women protesters who are going to be executed tonight in Iran will no longer be killed. 4 will be released immediately and 4 will be sentenced in 1 month. I very much appreciate that Iran and its leaders respected my request as president of the United States and terminated the planned execution. So a little win in his negotiating with the Iranians, but I do think it's going to go a long way, and it's going to set Trump up, like I said, to have this leverage, this negotiating capacity that we've never seen before in his hands. And I think it's going to be applied to some pretty amazing things going forward. Where was I had one other video here, but I don't know where it went. There it is. Yes, got it. Which is why I think ultimately, when you think of this wrestling, Mark Carney isn't really the full WrestleMania opponent. He's like the SummerSlam opponent. When Trump gets to the autumn, I think the full realization of all of these audits, all of these narrative supply chains are going to come to a head. And you're going to see, anyway, I think, the architect of all of this deceit, the symbol of all of this deceit, finally get what he has coming to him, and that is, of course, Obama. And here we see from a video that Trump released yesterday on Truth Social, I think, where things are heading.
Every single American in their shoes. I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama, there is now
probably not getting the audio, so I want to make sure you're getting the audio here. I wonder if we can use the Canadian space pad for space drops. I don't know.
Incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016. We must, absolutely must, hold every one of these criminals accountable for the crimes that they committed. They are the most heinous crimes committed in American history. James Comey, John Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Biden was in the meeting in July 28th in the Oval Office. They briefed Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's plan to, quote, tie Trump to Russia collusion lies. It consumed our national discourse for 5 years. It undermined a sitting duly elected president. It sabotaged administration. It framed a three-star general. It destroyed and ripped this country apart. We had a constitutional crisis, the likes of which I don't think any American can fully comprehend. It is atrocious, and every single one of them must be held accountable.
Which is why I think it's going to happen, guys. We're going to get our season of accountability that we've been waiting for. Should be fun. We're all excited. We're all excited. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. How do they focus on physical mail-in fraud, but nobody questions black box proprietary software voting machines? Well, I think probably the voting machine, I mean, I think they do have a focus on it, but what you do generally have in the federal state level split over election responsibility, I think the carrying out of elections is a state level mandate. And I think the voting machines, it's harder to do a federal ban on them. Trump using the US Postal Service as a federal lever, clearly that's a federal entity. So I think it's more about states' rights, and Trump is able to use the post office for the auditing versus you can't really do that with the machines because there are sovereign powers at the state level that would prevent them. So I think that's more what the question is. So there you go. All right, we got Hank in the house. What's up, Hank? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Nolan. How are you this fine Thursday morning?
We are enthusiastic about the future of humanity, of a new space launch capacity at Canada. So, well,
what does that mean for what's the Canadian space program like? Does that mean you guys just jumped off a Kitty Hawk or what?
Basically, yeah. It looks like a basketball court, and they just got 200 million trash tokens.
Did they?
On land they already own. The federal government leases it to a space airport. They call themselves space airport, but I mean, any high school rocket thing is better and bigger. And now the federal government yesterday forced, because they don't want to keep hitching a ride with Trump. So, so now they're going to be launching their own, and it's comical and all corrupt. Everyone involved is under various investigations already for other Ukrainian scams. They're all from Ukraine. So it's fully credible. No rocket capacity of their own. They just hope people use it to launch rockets. So it's perfect.
I think you're missing the big question in everyone's mind here there, Nolan, is will Trudeau let Katy Perry go up in a Canadian-made rocket to check out space?
You have a good point. You're asking a great question. That is here. Let me show you. I don't know if Katy Perry wants to get out there. This is what we got.
They were just at Coachella. I think they're living a different life right now.
Yeah, I had the videos for it. Here it is.
Oh, wow. This cement slab is really
$200 million.
A lot of confidence.
We're getting your sovereignty because only Canada can hitch a ride with the Americans to the moon. And then the next week say, you fucking losers, we don't need you anymore.
We got our own space program now, and it's beginning right in this concrete slab.
Yeah. So
oh boy.
I think it's perfect because Mark Carney put out a video in Canada where he kept a little toy soldier that Mike Myers had given to him last year about the War of 1812. And, anyway, the corollary, if Americans wanted to bring their toy soldiers, would have been a toy of Andrew Jackson, who was a belligerent in that war as well, and who prosecuted a war on central banks, which is really where the Prime Minister of Canada comes from. So it's a good rhyming framework.
Okay, is that what you guys are spending the majority of today's show chatting about then, or what was it?
A little bit. I was talking a little bit as well about. I don't know if you saw Mark Andreessen was talking about the Monitor the Situation podcast that they just launched. Yes, there's a new podcast called Monitoring the Situation. A lot like what we do at Roxham. It's why I even often in the morning text we're monitoring the situation. They took the meme. It's basically what I do on my show, which is talk about the timeline. You just go through Twitter, just take up and talk about what tweets are happening. But he predicted, much like I do, that it's hard to say what the current thing is going to be by the time the midterms come, because things are changing so fast. We can't even remember what the rage was 2 weeks ago. But I had a rebuttal to that, so I disagreed with him, saying that like wrestling, you can actually create the hype and the narrative supply chain. And that's what we're dealing with all this audit stuff. Why I continue to believe that all the auditing that you've heard from Nick Shirley and all that stuff, while never going to be the number one story any one day, by the end of 2026, it's going to be the second or third story every single day, because people are getting clicks off their own audits. Another lady went yesterday to Ilhan Omar's operation and showed it's a total scam. Her like fake refiling her financials, nobody buys it. It's like such a scam, right? No, you're wrong. I'm not worth 30 million. I'm actually still only worth 100 grand. So there's just too much interest in these stories, and the story self-repopulates. It's like a video game where it just gets spawned again every day. You had RFK doing it yesterday with that audience with AOC. It's just every day you're going to see this. It's a drip, drip, drip nonstop. The SPLC story is the same. So while you can say that we won't know what we're going to be outraged by, you can create a supply chain of narratives, which is what I think is involved here.
You know, I was thinking about yesterday. I was watching, they came out with a new Hulk Hogan documentary. And one of the final chapters of it, they talk about how he finally kind of leans into politics a little bit, most recently with Trump. And Trump makes an analogy that he's like, the politics is a lot like wrestling or something. And I was like, Nolan says that. Kayfabe.
There was actually a video that came out by this esoteric guy last week named Hidden America, but he spells America like different to be more school type of stuff. He's a guy who's normally looking to like ancient antediluvian Atlantean stuff and symbology and Freemason stuff and what do you call it, alchemists, because Newton like 10% of his published work is what he really did with his life, the Newtonian physics. He was really an alchemist. He really spent most of his life talking about this stuff. Anyway, the point is that video that this guy Hidden America did his video last week, and it was exactly this, that wrestling and politics are the exact same thing. And he went all into Trump being a world wrestling Hall of Famer and cheap heat. You know what cheap heat is? It's like Trump and his little tweets. Cheap heat is like, just say something that gets people's attention for now.
He's good at that.
Yeah. It's all cheap heat. He's an expert in cheap heat, blood and everything. It's just great.
Well, I mean, he knows how to keep attention. That's for damn sure. He's as good as anybody.
That's his
game.
game.
We say.
So what are you guys talking about this afternoon?
So much, what do we got here today on tap? Obviously, apparently Trump just came out, said something about shooting and killing, I think, boats that are laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. So that'll be fun. I believe that's new on the docket this morning. We got some news from Scott Bessent in the potential market structure bill. We've got, what else? $15 billion debt buyback. Marijuana, I guess, got moved, or is getting moved from clouds. yeah, so that's some news. There's a lot today. The world is a crazy place, and we'll be breaking it down. And I'll be joined by Walk America today. He's coming back.
Very great, very great. Yeah, I
we're
saw
happy.
Carla's war scene, man.
Yeah,
crazy,
tough cookie. Wow,
no kidding.
Yeah.
So just before I let you go, I did call out. I don't know if it'll be confirmed by later today, but these interdiction of boats, the one that maybe led to Trump's tweet, I believe the Iranian one that ABC News broadcast last night. So there's a video of the Americans jumping on a boat in the Pacific, part of the Shadow Fleet or the Ghost Fleet, but there's another one the Iranians put out of them boarding a boat in the Strait of Hormuz. It's fake. I'm almost 100. There's no way it's real. It's full AI.
Yeah.
But ABC ran it. No one has confirmed it fake, but it's just like the camera angles, and it's got that veneer on it where
you can still tell.
I'm not sure, but the camera angles were too. If you look at what the Americans were able to do, pretty action packed. They have some drones clearly taking shots, but these ones have like cameras mounted for the soldiers coming up the ladder. Like, what do you think? There's like a guy, like, come on, get the fuck out of here.
It's crazy. Did you see? I think it was that Netflix movie that kind of predicted we're entering this world where it's impossible, like, to know what is real and what's fake. It was called like Mountainhead or something. It was like Steve Carell and a bunch of billionaires in this world go to this mountain hideaway, and one of them has an app that's kind of like an X or something, but it's promoting all this fake news, and nobody knows what's real and what's fake. And I feel like that's what we're getting. And it's scary
now. Yeah. That's why you need the Bitcoin P2P. It's not just a P2P electronic cash network. It's a P2P information network, and Bitcoiners can do our best in a P2P way to create some kind of cognitive security around this stuff, because it gets pretty nasty out there.
It does, but that's the way it is, and we're going to do our best to break it down with the most signal possible. So I'll let you go and finish up with your audience, Nolan. Always a pleasure, and have fun on Robin's show. Always a good time over there.
Yeah, man. Take it easy, Hank.
See ya.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye. All right, folks, you heard Hank. We're almost done here. Turn that Canadian space pad into a launching pad for Space Drop's Maple Leaf solution. That's what it's there for, guys. That's what I think is going to happen with it. We want it to happen. I used to do the commuter train when I lived in Atlanta. It was fun to see the traffic jams while we just cruised right over them. People at work always complained about the cost of parking too. Yeah, we like the trains. We like the trains. Audio good. Got to have Bugs Bunny and all the branding. Perfect name for the event, Space Jam. The concrete pad might not be able to launch a rocket, but a killer spot to set up a band. Awning required, indeed. Okay, folks. Oh, I'm way over time. All right, folks, I'm about to play the logo, followed by the thanks for watching screen. Thanks for watching. See you all tomorrow. It'll be Friday. Peace.